Hey, welcome back guys for part 2. This is CGing and general setup of a Gizmo. For the purpose of CGing, optimum is about 152 millimeters from the nose. I suggest everyone should start about 150. It does have quite a large CG range, so you can fly it really nose heavy and it'll still rip around the sky and still feel good. But you need to get it to that point where it feels a bit unsettled and a bit pitchy in the sky. You'll get it to the point where it feels really nice, but then you take it back a bit further and it really comes alive. So you've got to get it to the point when you're flying, fly it on a good day where it's 10 to 15 knots plus, so you have nice lift to get it CG'd and rolling perfect. I'll go through that part at the later stages of this video, but first off, CG, start at about 150 and then you'll move it back, take a bit of lead out the front, get it back to probably about 152, maybe even 152 and a half or something if you like it really neutral. I know, like me, Asto and Ezra and stuff, you know, we fly quite neutral and pretty crazy, so we sort of like a really neutral plane. We have found the further you take it back, the better and better inverted it flies. So it DS is inverted exactly the same as it does the right way up, but in the vicinity of about 20 miles an hour slower. So it's awesome when you get it absolutely on the money. You can just do whatever you want to do and it still flies. So start at 150 and work your way back to 152, maybe a bit further if you can handle it, and you'll be sweet. One thing I also should mention is that with most planks that are built with a PW51 or a PW98 or any of the common Peterwick airfoils, they always fly with a fraction of up trim in them, or a bit of reflex. The Gizmo doesn't. If you've got up trim at all, you're still flying nose heavy. You can actually still fly it and it feels really nice and it's trimmed flush. You can still take the CG back. Once you've got the CG perfect, you'll end up having a little tiny bit of down trim. It's more noticeable in the center, because once you get the plane you'll see what I mean. The center's got reflex in it and the tips don't have reflex. So you'll end up having maybe less than a millimeter of down trim, and then you'll know it's CG'd perfect, and it'll be very neutral at that point. You'll have 1 millimeter of elevator. What I find is when you have got it CG'd perfect and you're de-essing or flying fast, the trim will be neutral. So when you're de-essing, you're pulling a little bit of elevator, so the plane is actually trim flush when you're de-essing. So it's kind of all worked out in the end pretty well, really, that it's trimmed flush when you're in the groove. So that was just a bit of luck there, but you win some sometimes. Also, another thing that I wanted to say was you can always add a little bit of lead to the front in big conditions or when you're de-essing. When they're set up very neutral and the CG is perfect, when de-essing it or in really big air, they're very sensitive. Hey, I love flying crazy and wild, so does Asto and Ezra and stuff. We actually haven't added lead to the front while we're de-essing, but it does settle them down if you fly it a little bit nose heavy. You'll find you can go a millimeter or so forward on the CG, and it will become much more relaxing to fly rather than wow crazy stuff. So it comes down to personal opinion and how you like to fly. There is no right or wrong CG. It has got quite a large CG range for a plank, which is very uncommon, so you can fly it nose heavy or a bit aft, and yeah, it's still doable. Yeah. Rightio, me Bill Bunny and I back out of the backyard, got what we need to CG a Gizmo. So I've got a Gizmo, I've got a very high-tech stand. No matter what, I love me ballpoint pens. They seem to work the best for me. Everyone's got their own ways, but this is how I do it, and let's get it done. So now this has got battery in it and servos in it. We'll flip it over. Servos are mounted, and you can see that there is where the battery is, and obviously I'm going to put a bit of lead in the front. I'm probably going to put about 30 to 40 grams of lead in the front. I've got it there. I've just got lead shot. That's actually recycled out of a crashed one, so it's got a bit of epoxy with it. But let's put it on the stand and get it set up. Righto, we're on the stand. Wonder if you can see under there. It's on my marks. I've got a bit of stuff under the tail to help it hold almost horizontal, but not quite. You can see my little bucket on the front, which is double-sided taped on. And if I lift it to the horizontal, you'll see it readily wants to go back because it is very tail heavy. So for the purpose of this video, I've already got my lead here. We've got one chunk in here, which I'll crush up, make it fit in right. And the rest, I'll just pour in. I've got it almost the right amount that I need. Hang on, if I can get it in there. And you'll see, I'll get to the point when you hold it on the horizontal, it'll want to go forward. But at the moment, see there, it's still, from the horizontal, still wants to go back. You'll get it to the point where only a few grams will make a difference. I'll go again. A little bit more. Wind's, oh, there you go, the wind is blowing away. Get to the point now, I'll put a few more grams in and see it from the horizontal. It'll actually teeter both ways. If you go perfectly horizontal, it'll go down, now nose down at the front. If you go 1 or 2 degrees back, it'll go down at the tail. That's almost where you want it. So it's actually teetering. I can probably take a little bit of lead out of that because it seems to me that it might be fractionally nose heavy. So I've just taken a little piece out. And what I normally do is I keep doing that until I'm happy. For some reason, I can never get one of these to sit exactly perfectly stable. I'm happy with that. It's actually, I might put that piece back in because it seems to be a bit teetering for. Alright, got a little bit more added. I've got to the point where on the horizontal, it's just teetering. Fraction nose heavy if anything. So what you've got to watch, what I normally do, because you've got all that in there, when you put it into it, it'll probably go slightly forward. So I take a few grams out of that mix before I mix it with epoxy and put it in. Otherwise you'll end up being way too nose heavy and have to add a fair bit to the back. So I won't put all that in one go. I'll probably put 3/4 of that in. Then I'll slide the battery back in. I don't glue the battery in until I know I've got the CG right. So I put 3/4 of that in, then I put the battery back in, make sure it's all still okay. Then I keep adding bits of that back in and sliding the battery in until I get it perfectly right. Righto, the lead has been put in. This one being a bit of a heavier model, I've put about 42 grams of lead. That's including the epoxy. So that just fills up the nose area just short. There's another mark just down there for the battery width, and it comes up to just short of that. So gives you an idea of how much lead's in it. Not very much. Righto, back to the station in a little while. So we made a cup of tea. Oh, yeah, a cup of Dilmar. Best tea on earth. Do try it. Anyway, this is all dry now, ready to go. So now we can jam the battery in and see how it looks. Yeah, battery's jammed in. Takes a little bit of pushing to get that in there. Plus the glue is a bit sticky that I've just put in there. So that's down as far as it'll go. You can see in there it's lined up with my line that I've drawn on there previously, so I know it's all the way forward. And I'll chuck the tail on and see how it looks. As you can see on the marks again. Now that should be fractionally tail heavy, I'd guess. Yeah, it's only very fractionally tail heavy. That'll fly like that, but it'll be just oversensitive. So I'm happy to leave it like that now and continue with CAing the other bits and getting the throws right. And on the day of launch, I will Put a little 5-cent coin on the nose or a 10-cent coin and fly it, and then take it off as I feel happy, and we should be sweet. So there you go. There is almost CG'd perfect Gizmo.